Boys, we are so fucking back. After spending so much time playing so much Assassin's Creed getting ready for the release of Mirage, I was genuinely afraid to boot it up for the first time. But I'm happy to report that for once Ubisoft did what it said it was going to do. Is it the best game I've ever played? No. Is it the best Assassin's Creed game I've ever played? Might scratch the top 5 if it's lucky. But am I so utterly happy to have it? Yes. Yes, I am. I asked for a combat and difficulty system that wasn't based on imaginary numbers and instead was balanced around a world they designed intelligently, and they absolutely nailed it. Taking some of the better aspects of the RPG style combat, such as the movement and different ways to attack an enemy, while returning to a mostly familiar flow. I wanted a world that asked to be explored rather than one that demanded it, and that's exactly what we got here. I never had to explore, but they gave me a good reason to do so, and I was always pleasantly surprised, albeit not blown away, every time I did. The story was nothing to write home about, but I liked Bassam and relished in being able to play through a curated experience without having to grind side content constantly to be able to enjoy it. There won't be any spoilers here, but if you're just looking for a yes or no when it comes to buying it, I'm willing to give you a hearty thumbs up if you enjoyed Assassin's Creed pre-RPG debacle. Also, just for a value for money argument, I would only suggest the base game. I don't think the outfit and weapons that come with the deluxe edition are worth that extra 10 bucks, but you can make that decision. It's not a giant leap in price. That being said, if you would like some more detailed info, let's get into it, starting with the gameplay. Ubisoft promised back to basics, and they lived up to that here. It's not exactly the same as previous peaks of the series, and while I would have been happy with that, what we got here is excellent. It is focused primarily on a parry-based system with enemies launching both normal attacks you can parry and counter, along with stronger attacks you'll need to get out of the way of. Also, as you level up, you'll gain new abilities such as the ability to kick an enemy away or counter roll over them to give yourself a surprise advantage, especially useful against armored enemies. The combat feels responsive, and while it's easy to enter a good flow, it's also easy to step out of line and get caught, which is just how it should feel. It's actually directly stated that Bassam isn't a seasoned fighter. Engaging with too many enemies can spell disaster quickly, to which I agree with more or less. But I never felt as though I was completely out of my depth when I was fighting a large group, just that I had to perform well to do so. There are only a few enemy types, but they shift combat flow in a positive way, always keeping you on your toes. The best addition being the armored enemies, who are common enough that you'll get good at dealing with them, but because you can only attack them from behind, will force you to actually take positioning seriously when they're in the fray. You will also run into an advanced enemy type called the Shakaraya in certain sorry situations, and should you allow your notoriety to get to level 3. They are a fantastic challenge and actually motivated me to flee rather than fight on more than one occasion, which is something Assassin's Creed has rarely done a good job of. Speaking of notoriety, it's very well balanced here with the 3 levels adding unique issues each time and encouraging you to work to reduce said notoriety without being a constant nuisance. The weapon and armor choices have also been streamlined with simply a sword, dagger, and different outfits you can wear that have various perks which will allow you to adjust to fit your playstyle. For the most part, they're pretty well balanced, and I really enjoy that you can actually change your weapons to look like any of the other ones you've collected to mix perks and visual styles seamlessly. The same is almost true for costumes. They're separate from your outfits, which does mean you can mix and match perks with aesthetics, which is always a welcome feature. As far as balance, everything I found in-game felt like there was a solid give and take, with things ranging from a default defensive stance to a glass cannon approach. The one thing I will say is that you pick up the deluxe edition, you'll be given a Prince of Persia inspired weapons kit, which will give you crazy abilities to slow time during combat, which even for a power trip merchant like myself feels like way too much to be allowed, and I wouldn't suggest it on a first playthrough. That's combat though. How about stealth? It's really and truly the base of the game, and I love it so damn much. I will say that some of the level design seems to push you into using both your aerial companion and the new chain kill skill abilities, neither of which are features I particularly enjoy, the latter especially. This doesn't mean you can't get by without them, it just feels as though using them is the expectation. On that thought though, I asked for a toolkit I could unlock and play with, and that's what I got word for word. I love how you can choose which tools to unlock, and the upgrade system really lets you fine tune your playstyle. Each and every tool I found had a place to be used naturally when playing the game, unlike many titles where I find myself using certain items for footage more than because I find them naturally useful. From smoke bombs to traps and noisemakers, I always found a use for what was in my pockets, and I have to say being able to open barred doors with a throwing knife through a window felt crazy cool. Social stealth has also made its return. While it's severely underutilized, the rest of the game was so enjoyable, I didn't really notice. All parts of Assassin's Creed Mirage just feel like a familiar thing to play, and I enjoyed all but one moment of my playthrough. This one particular moment when I'd done a fantastic job slipping into a big base during an assassination unnoticed just to get trolled by a window did drive me crazy. But that was the only time I failed in a way that wasn't my fault. I really enjoyed learning a new combat system, and even while simple, it took me a few hours to get my flow in, and I could really feel my skill level increasing as it went both in open combat and in stealth. I actually just noticed in one mission that I was getting way better at navigating these areas, and that was nice to see. It's not Kingdom Come Deliverance levels of skill progression and enjoyment, but hardly anything ever is, and that was just fine in my book. Only major critique is that holy hell, the camel makes the most annoying noises when you're riding it. Switching to a horse made my life so much better. Before I get to the story, I do want to touch on the game's performance. I mentioned before my hardware is just a little too high end to comment on a game's optimization in a positive light, but I can comment on this. I was consistent around 90 to 100 FPS with my settings maxed out at 1440p, but you can feel occasional sharp drops, which is supported by the in-game benchmark. My game seems to be GPU bound, which is information that you can do something with, I guess. My biggest complaint would honestly be that the game doesn't look significantly better to my eye than previous titles going back to at least Origins, and I feel as though the map being so much smaller, it could have been a better performer. I'm curious to see if Gamers Nexus or similar releases benchmarks for the game and discusses the issues. That would be who I would look to for more info on the subject. I would also say I'm coming off the visual spectacle of The Outer Worlds and the benchmark for visual fidelity in Cyberpunk, so my expectations are probably a bit skewed at the moment. Now, when I laid out what I wanted from the game, I said that a story which is simply passable would be enough, and that's what we got here. In all honesty, it's pretty light on story and plot, pretty much taking the framework from the original game. Get a target, go to a bureau, which feels so nice to get back to, by the way. Really captures the feel of the first game, albeit on a larger scale. But anyway, get a target, go to a bureau, get some basic info, and complete an investigation that's usually pretty diverse and interesting here in Mirage. Then go after your target. The assassination missions often feel vast and exciting with multiple layers to peel back and lots of opportunities to be explored. Really taking a lot from both Unity and Syndicate in a great way while having gameplay I vastly prefer to those titles. That being said, they really do have a plot that takes the structure of the first game but strips away the mystery, intrigue, and character development that Altair had in his hunt for the Nine. For my money, the vast majority of Basim's character growth happened in a cutscene in the first couple hours of the game, and while that wasn't super exciting, it was believable as they did a good job showing the passage of time and over the course of your training, even if you're not participating in it personally. He wasn't the most interesting character, but I liked him all the same. I could always understand the actions he took and see why he was the man he was at any given moment in the story. And I won't spoil it, maybe in a short or something, but in the ending he was so fantastically acted that one single thing he said hit me harder than any character since Arno. There isn't a wealth of side stories, but the Tales of Baghdad are all pretty interesting with fun, one-off characters that I enjoyed, and when it comes to side missions, the contracts provide fun challenges that I think most people will enjoy. I think that about sums it up. The combat is a great middle ground between philosophies. The fat the RPG games were drowning in has been trimmed away in the absolute best of ways, which leaves for a well-paced, pleasurable experience that I can happily recommend. For my money, Assassin's Creed is back, but I would temper your expectations for the next entries. Game development takes years, and at least the next title is already in development and will follow the RPG format. Ubisoft will react if this game reviews and, more importantly, sells well, but it will take time to see the results from the successes of Mirage. From their standpoint, this is an experiment to see if people actually want to return to roots or just think they do. For me, I can confidently say that this is what I wanted, and because I got it, I won't be putting Assassin's Creed down quite yet. I expect to be disappointed by the next entry, but for today, I have Mirage, and that's more than enough for me.
Pretty weak title drop.
Thanks for sticking around, guys. If you enjoyed the content, please do me a favor and hit that sub button. It really helps. I already have scripts written and voiced over for the next two videos. One will be a spotlight on the Outer Worlds, and one will be covering a topic I very much enjoy in Cyberpunk. For today, though, that's all. This is Purple signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.
How did you feel on that day so long ago?
I felt afraid. My palms were slick with sweat and my knees were shaking.
Oh, come on! Knees weak, palms are sweaty.